Stark is a coward, a trope we usually can't stand in anime, but somehow Frieren flips the script. Stark, a character we should feel annoying, becomes someone we can't help but love, because the series transforms this overused archetype through a masterclass of character development. Through subtle, deliberate moments, precise interactions, meaningful dialogues, and small gestures, it all turns Stark into more than just a relatable character. And oh boy, Stark gets that special treatment, which also hints at just how extraordinary Stark's journey could become in the story ahead. So let's talk about Stark, the walking meme of Frieren. Stark is that guy in your office with the most glorious CV. He's from a family of warriors, grew up in the warriors village, he's Aizen, the strongest warrior's apprentice, and now he's the warrior in Frieren's party. Yeah, Stark is that guy with the glorious CV who shows up to the office hungover while crying to his coworker because he couldn't sleep because of cockroach. Despite the shining CV, this guy is a walking meme. The number of times he gets absolutely wrecked in the series is memeable. He's a total coward who cried full-on tears in the lap of someone he barely knew. He stayed stuck in a village for 3 years because of a lizard he later beat in like 2 hits. And from that description, if for some wild reason you haven't watched Frieren yet, Stark probably sounds like he'd annoy you. But here's the thing. Stark is a coward, but saying Stark is just a coward is like saying Frieren hates Fern because of reasons. And no, it's not just because he's the only guy in Frieren who seems to have any romantic luck. It's because his journey is a true masterclass in character development, especially what happens in just 2 episodes. Yeah, 2 episodes. Apparently that's all it takes for the series to take this goofy, cowardly, lizard-avoiding guy and turn him into a character that people root for. And it all started from this scene. So what's up with that scene? Why does Stark's transformation hit so hard? Before diving into that, I want to draw a comparison, not with another warrior, but with someone you probably wouldn't expect. Nina Izeri from Girls Band Cry is an anime that I think people would regret not watching. It's so good. So basically, Nina had a tough life. She was bullied in high school and her family wasn't exactly stepping in that much to protect her. And on top of that, she struggled with her tedious family culture, so what did she do? She dropped out of high school, packed her bags, and moved to Tokyo. Alone. And not to be a musician. Her whole deal was about hustling to prove everyone wrong. The bullies, her family, the entire system that failed her. Yeah, fiery type. And here's the thing, although their problems aren't similar at all, there are critical similarities. They just have strikingly different personalities that how they act around it seem really different. And let's not just skim the surface here. Forget the usual, here's the conflict, here's the resolution breakdown. Let's go much deeper than that. So to see how all this, Stark's growth and Nina Izeri connect, we need to talk about what actually happened in those 3 years before Stark met Frieren. Stark stayed in that village for 3 years after his first encounter with the Chaos Dragon, and for him, despite all the hospitality, it was a miserable time. Think about it. Imagine being in his shoes. Stark's out there, day after day, constantly on edge, wondering if today is the day the dragon will come back to bite his head off. Uncertainty like that? It's a special kind of torture. And Stark didn't even realize that he's the reason the dragon stayed away. In his mind, he wasn't defending the village, he was hanging around, waiting for doom to arrive. He probably stuck around just because the villagers were so nice to him, not because he thought he was making a difference. And this situation had 2 big problems. First, is an unresolved issue, a huge stressful one. In psychology, what we are talking about is related to what we know as the Zeigarnik effect. It's when unfinished business sticks in your mind like gum in your shoe, making it impossible to fully relax. For Stark, that unfinished business was a dragon, and it left him in a constant state of anxiety. And the second problem, the worst one, there's more to Stark's struggles than just the Chaos Dragon. Big Red Lizard aside, Stark had a lot on his mind. His relationship with Aizen was unresolved. And don't forget his lingering regret of leaving his home village. Those were loose ends, lingering in his head like ghosts. And this is why I brought Nina Izeri earlier. Both she and Stark share a critical flaw, their tendency to leave too many problems unresolved, allowing them to fester. Those open loops captured their attention too much, they started making mistakes. Now, back to Stark. Take that pile of unresolved issues, toss in Stark's low self-confidence, a high-stakes situation with no clear resolution, and an uncertain future. What do you get? Look, when you have too many open problems clawing for your attention, it feels like your brain short-circuited. Zeigarnik effect makes sure that all of those unresolved open loops capture your attention. Maybe not 100% of the time, but it's surely enough to blow your focus. It's just brain rot in the worst way possible. And here's the worst part. This state of mind makes you dwell on the bad stuff. The negative memories surface more often, and your ability to take action disappears. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, the obvious reason is the ground zero matters a lot in character development. And this is the starting point of Stark. Really well taught and grounded. For characters to be truly loved, they have to be understood. No understanding, no respect, no love. I think most of us definitely know how Stark feels. That moment where life throws so many problems at you and you feel utterly paralyzed. But here's the thing, being relatable isn't enough. Relatability in character development is like something that has to be there, but we're not even in the process of development yet. And the development starts with this scene. We're talking about Stark's character development, but I think we can do much deeper than that. Look, I think based on what we talked about before, we can agree that episode 5 and 6 may hit close to home for lots of people. I mean, feeling paralyzed because of a chaotic day is pretty common. So here's the deal. While we are talking about Stark's growth, we're also gonna see what happened in this 2D guy's head. I just think most people can get something useful out of it. So let's talk about this scene. When Frieren and Fern show up, they do two things for Stark. First, Frieren, as usual, doesn't sugarcoat anything. She tells Stark he's coming with them to kill the dragon and he has less than 24 hours to decide. And now, suddenly, the unresolved issue of the Chaos Dragon becomes Stark's top priority. In short, Frieren gives Stark urgency. It's not something he can keep ignoring anymore. And second, Frieren's actually nice enough to hear Stark's problem. I mean, she can probably relate to it, because of her time before joining Himmel's party. But not only that, Fern also had a conversation with Stark. It's kind of an awkward conversation. Fern grabs his hand and Stark's reaction is like, "You don't even know me." But think about it. In 3 years of living in that village, how often did Stark talk about his fears and struggles? Probably never, because the villagers look up to him as their hero. And I don't think I need to tell you how important that is. We talked about the Zygarnik effect before. One way to combat it, or even to make it to an advantage, is to put all of those thoughts outside your head. That's why things like journaling, talking candidly to friends, it helps you straighten your head. And the result of that, for the first time in years, Stark's mind is clear enough to make a decision. Then he shows up in the next morning. And sure, you could argue, hey, maybe he would have shown up anyway, But in chapter 61, Stark actually confirms it himself. He was on the verge of leaving the village, ready to throw it all away. So without Frieren and Fern, he would run. And now here's the really jazzy part. After that moment, Stark's body language starts to change. Take a look at this scene. Here, you can see that he's still kinda uncertain. His hands are trembling and his body is slightly turned towards Frieren instead of fully facing the dragon. It's clear that he's not 100% committed yet. But little by little, you can see the shift. Stark starts walking forward, his body now fully facing the dragon and his eyes locked with determination. It's a really striking contrast to his first encounter with the Chaos Dragon. And now let's think about what's happening from Stark's perspective. Right in front of him is this massive, terrifying red-scaled dragon. It's dangerous, intimidating, it's everything he's been dreading. And that condition is perfect. Because for Stark now, at this moment, the dragon becomes the only thing that matters. It's dangerous enough to grab all of his attention, but he's ready enough to face it. And this is when all of the unresolved issues, guilt, fears don't matter. Now it's just him and the dragon, one problem to solve. And for the first time in years, Stark faces one of his unresolved issues. Continuing our conversation about character development, if we're speaking on a smaller scale, those changes are monumental for Stark. But even after episode 6, Stark is still kind of a coward. But over several episodes, we see Stark slowly get better at it. In episode 8, in episode 9, he faces a rough test. But in episode 12, not much fear there. And if you're up to date with the manga, Stark's bravery has only grown. Of course, he still trembles, but he faces challenges head-on with unshakable resolve. He has become indestructible in spirit, but it all traces back to the boy who cried his heart out. And that's the key point. Stark shows clear growth while still being Stark, just with meaningful, delightful changes that feel natural and earned. And that's enough if Frieren were purely a slice of life story. But it isn't. Stark isn't only about cowardice, right? Now, consider this. If all Nina Izeri had going for her is being really angry, it wouldn't have worked. She would just be super annoying. Same with Bocchi the Rock. Just imagine if Bocchi is all about social anxiety and nothing more. But instead, these characters like Nina Izeri and Stark, they get something extra. For Nina, it's the way she channels her emotions, screaming her soul out and surprising everyone. And the same is true for Stark. He's not just a coward who was shunned by his dad. He's not just the guy who got punched in the face by his master or trembled like crazy in front of a dragon. He's also the real deal. And this is it, a spark that pushes them beyond expectations. Watching strong OP characters who have no problem is really boring. Watching a pathetic character being relatably pathetic without much progress is miserable. But watching someone with relatable vulnerability with a potential spark for them to surprise everyone, that's entertainment. And looking at Stark and comparing him with other characters in Frieren, Stark has a unique place in Frieren, and that made me think that his growth might hint at how special he could become within the story as it unfolds. The Frieren series is no stranger to paradoxical characters, and Stark fits right in with its lineup of unexpected contrasts. Take Aizen, the strongest warrior, who still shivers when faced with a tough enemy, or Haita, the corrupt priest, Frieren herself even, and of course Himmel, a chill and handsome bro with narcissistic tendencies. But here's the thing, none of these characters undergo the detailed transformation we see in Stark during episode 5 and 6. Or honestly, maybe because I never watched other episodes drunk. This video is sponsored by Too Much Alcohol. So where does that leave Stark? It honestly got me thinking, maybe, just maybe, Stark is destined for something bigger. And the biggest clue lies in episode 12. If you compare the hero party with Frieren's current group, Stark doesn't just echo Aizen as the warrior. He also carries traits that are unmistakably Himmel's. The obvious one Stark shares, Himmel's inclination to lend a hand to anyone, no matter how random. That's not Aizen's domain, that's Himmel's. Himmel was the one who had romantic subplots, not Aizen, unless you count Aizen and Haita's antics as romance, which please don't. And then there's the moment in episode 12 where Stark's story is kinda suddenly tied to the hero's sword. It leads to the wild possibility that Stark is probably being set up as the next hero. It's just a silly idea. I just want to share silly ideas sometimes. Although not gonna lie, that's pretty hype. And being a hero in Frieren universe is more about action, heart, and personal branding anyway. Yeah, whatever. Okay, the main point of this video is this. This is what I really want to say through this video. Our love and excitement for a character might be closer and simpler than we think. It's just like being connected with someone. You want someone that you can trust and give out hope while still being open and vulnerable.